Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. We are at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Paul is on the other side over there, and in the middle, who else would we have here when we're at Laguna Seca but Kenny Roberts himself? Kenny Roberts Sr., three-time world. Yeah, I didn't mean it that way.
You must have a good camera. Is it in focus?
Three-time world 500cc champion, and he was back on a bike this weekend. That some people, we made a point of the fact that last weekend, right?
Yeah.
We made a point of the fact that Wayne obviously was racing his 1992 YZR 500 that Kenny had a little bit to do with. And I had mentioned in one of our social media posts that Kenny was on his bike. And I guess people thought it was going to be one of the 78 to 80, one of those bikes. I'm like, no, it's his bike. He was on a Proton. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But Kenny, thanks for being on with us. Yeah. Quite an experience over there.
It always is. It's an event like no other that we do. By far the classiest thing that we do.
Yeah, they actually got you in a suit.
Seeing you in a tux. When was the last time you had a tux on?
The problem with my tux is I had two or three of them because I had 2 or 3 houses at one time, and I got them all mixed up. So that some pants don't go over the others. A little suit inside, it's so you never know what I'm going to show up with. Luckily, nobody gives a darn anyway. So, usually everybody's so drunk on champagne at that point, nobody cares.
So for those that don't know, that was the part of the whole thing is they had a black tie affair that they went to, and Kenny's wife Tomo was there, looked beautiful in her outfit, and everybody was wearing black tie. But before that, these guys were out on the hill climb section. And you raced in a time period where there were a lot of hay bales around the tracks. Have you ever seen a track with that many hay bales around it?
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah,
they were like 6 feet high.
Yeah, that's how they used to do it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, when you talk about one of the racetracks we did, Spa, it was about 5-6 miles long, and it had hay bales everywhere. Had guardrail everywhere. The one in Germany, Nürburgring. 14 miles long, had hay bales everywhere, had to cover the guardrail.
Wow.
Now, you're not the most emotional guy. You weren't before, but I noticed that you are a lot more now that we get older, What was that like to watch Wayne Rainey ride a motorcycle again, 500 GP bike, all those people? I mean, I got goosebumps watching it, and I was here watching it on little video clips, so I can imagine what it must have been like for you.
Well, it started in Japan when Wayne... And emotions is a thing that, not very emotional, but you don't know when the emotion's going to hit you. And all the way through getting him in Japan and getting the R1, all that stuff, and getting him,
Oh, yeah, the Suzuka deal, yeah.
Yeah.
So the minute he took off on the bike, I never thought about it. But like tears come to my eyes.
Wow.
The minute he took off. And it was strange. And me and Shay were looking at each other like, it's just something that happens, and you can't say I'm not emotional. I don't know why you said that. And but to watch him on a 500 Grand Prix bike it's just something that I have trouble describing it because I can't. I mean, I graduated 5th grade twice. I don't really understand why I can't, but I can't. The words can't come out that what I saw Wayne do. One time, because the bikes, these bikes are really high strung. They're not made to ride around in the pit area. And so, but that's what has to happen to do this event. And one time it cleaned out because Wayne was trying to get it to clean out, and it cleaned out and did a wheelie, and I almost shit my pants. And I know he was like, "Whoa, what happened?" These things they're just not made to do this.
Right.
And to see him do that, riding with Kevin Swanson and of course Doohan, it was just a trip every time we went up the mountain.
You did like 2 a day for like 3 days, and then you had the pre-run on like Thursday or something. You went about 6 or 7 times, didn't you?
Yeah. and I made it every time.
Yeah. The greatest line. Sorry,
One
go
of the
ahead.
problem was after the start finish line, me doing and Swans, we'd all take off to clean the bikes out.
Right.
And the last time that Wayne went up the hill, we all stopped and there's no Wayne. And it's like, wait a minute.
What have we done?
Everybody's scurrying around and trying to find out what happened. And Doohan actually ran down the hill to see if he could see him. And the bike quit. And I said, look, I know he didn't crash. So, and he's smart enough to pull over the hay bales and lean up against the hay
Which
bales.
is what he did, right?
Which is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So that was, it was pretty hectic there for about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, he told us about that the other day. What I was going to say is the funniest thing for me is right after that first run that you guys did, they talked to Wayne a little bit. Then they came over and talked to you. And the first thing you said is, if I had another lap, I would have beat him. I'm like completely straight face.
Yeah. It's, like I said, you can't describe it.
Right.
You know, it almost like the last 30 years has just disappeared. They weren't there. Matter of fact, at Thursday, it was like really cautious and trying to cover all the bases for the little shit. And then by the end of Saturday, it's like, come on, hurry up.
Right, let's go.
Let's go. So it really was 30 years just like disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the comfort level got better every day.
Sure.
I know when we had him out, a couple of us were out there that first day when he actually rode at Button Willow. And I was like scared.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
We all are,
we're
yeah.
standing there. We're not out with him. And there he goes off. And you're just like, if something happens, what do we do? But
That's right.
it worked out well. And it's kind of cool he's got to do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
But the last one was definitely special with that
Yeah.
bike.
Well, that bike is special in itself. And then, of course, Wayne sitting on it with the old Marlboro leathers. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
So that was the 92 YZR 500. I won't do the OW because I know it, but I'm not
Well,
going to.
I know. You know every single thing that's ever happened at Yamaha.
I'm not going to say the
I don't know.
OW.
You wouldn't know, but he would.
I just look for my number, and that's the one I ride.
That's right. That bike, though, was it in Japan and they pulled it out of the museum? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they obviously had to do some things to it. And they
went through the bike and they were surprised it was in such good condition, is what they told Wayne. So, there's not much to these things. They're very complicated and very precise, but there's not like the 4-strokes. There's not a whole lot of moving parts. And
right.
And again, the problem is that we're used to riding them when they're tuned and on a racetrack. And when you're riding around in the pit, it ain't tuned and it ain't on a racetrack. So they're real hard to ride. And they're so rich, they won't run. A lot of times they die on you. So that's what I was worried about, is the thing being so rich. And it was, that it would die on him. And then, when it dies on you, you're done.
Yeah.
So we made it.
Let's talk about your bike a little bit, the Proton that you rode.
It's a lot better bike.
What's the iteration though? You had a Modinus to start with, which that was a true stroke you rode.
Yes.
Okay. V3?
Yes.
V3. Was it similar to the Modinus that was before it?
Yes.
Okay.
There was 3 generations of that motorcycle. First generation had 2 cylinders down below, 1 up. The next generation, 2 up, one down, and then it just kept getting smaller and better.
And where was that bike before you rode it?
That bike was in New Zealand a week before I rode it.
Wow.
It was the one that Jeremy McWilliams the last 2-stroke to set on the pole position for a Grand Prix. It was in Phillip Island. So it's a special bike.
Yeah.
Can you believe that old guy still races with us? Oh, yeah. Well, he wants me to give him the trophy.
Oh, okay.
So,
that'll be perfect.
Oh, yeah. I got a trophy girl outfit, so.
No, he's a special guy.
I don't have to wear it.
That's a good question to ask you. How did it come about that you had Jeremy ride your bike? Whose idea was it? Was it yours? Was it Chuck's?
I didn't have any money.
Okay. And Jeremy's the right guy. Let's get Jeremy.
Jeremy was the guy to put on it. You had to ride it kind of like a big 250.
Mm-hmm.
And he did well. I mean, he did well on it. And let's face it, with the budget we had, you couldn't even buy a Honda rider. So, Jeremy come along at the right time.
Mm. And I mean, to see him out there now, and he's still doing so much development he's working with KTM and developing that Duke. And he didn't ride in the hooligan class at Daytona, but he wanted to, because that's kind of the bike that he's helped develop. So he's still very involved and is doing a lot of stuff. I saw a thing on social media the other day. He was doing trials with a couple people too. So
yeah, he likes motorcycles.
He likes motorcycles.
Yeah.
It's in his blood.
Yeah. Do you still ride?
Yeah, of course. I rode a week ago. Is that a dumb question or what?
It is a dumb question. That's what I'm here for. That's my job. Paul knows that. That's what it's all about.
You're good at it.
but I mean, are you? I know you've got a Super Tenere out there today that you're riding, and do you mostly ride on the road? On the road, you did some off road a few years ago. I know you broke your wrist at one point. Do you still ride off road very much?
No.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I can still ride off road, but no, I don't have enough time to really do it the way I would want to do it.
Right.
My brain thinks I can still do it. My body says no, ain't no way.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Inside your mind, you're not your age, are you?
I don't know. I don't know what age is.
Well, but exactly. But I mean,
you can hardly remember my name.
But the idea,
I just try not to pee my pants all the time.
Yeah, but the idea that you said it was 30 years, like, went away with Wayne. It felt like, it wasn't that long ago, right?
No, mentally, it's not. I mean, that's the weird thing about getting old and decrepit. You don't really think you are.
Right.
But you are.
Right.
It's convincing yourself that you're not. I mean, when I raced, I spent all my time convincing myself I was going slow or not fast, because that's what you have to do. Because if you're a racer and you think you're going too fast, you're done. So I spent all my life half my life trying to slow everything down where I could process it all and not think that it's too fast. And I think that's the way my mind worked when I was young, working with his dad. It was processing a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't know why, but I just did, and it's still doing it, unfortunately.
Right.
Sometimes.
Speaking of that, when you look back on your racing career, what's the part that you look back on fondly? Which part did you like the most? Was it the dirt tracking here, or was it going to Europe?
I think dirt tracking here and trying to understand it, because I was not comfortable road racing. I raced with your dad, and he set up the bikes, and I just rode it. But I was always uncomfortable riding it. And although I was going as fast as anybody, except probably your dad at that time, but I felt, man, there's more. There's something else here that I'm missing. And I did a race with your dad. It was a 100-mile 250 race in Ontario. And I was 60, I think. I don't think I was quite number one yet. And I'm in the winner's circle. Your dad beat me because he had a different sixth gear than I did.
Cheater.
And he beat me to the line. But we raced the whole race. I mean, we were never more than a bike length apart. And his front tire is completely bald, and mine's half new. And I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, we had the same tires, same bike. So I go to the back of the bike, and my rear tire is bald. There's no tread on it. His is half wore out. And that's when I started to put together there's a big difference here. What is the difference? And that's when I started really to enjoy riding a road racer, because I could ride a road racer with my knee on the ground and be out of control, in control. And that's when I really started having fun. And before that, I didn't want to even look at a road racer. They weren't fun. They weren't dirt track. So that's when it really started to have fun. And then, of course, going to Europe, I didn't want to go to Europe. Nobody wanted to go to Europe. They barely had a McDonald's in Europe. So that, and the whole thing came around, I had to. And when I had to, and I did it, then that became a big deal. I still say the dirt track racing is the funnest, and probably the best race, one of the best I did was the Indy Mile, of course, in '75. And the rest of it's just like I had to do it, and it was fun beating all the Europeans. Though that was
That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun beating Barry Sheen.
Yeah,
because he drove around in a Rolls Royce, and I had a motorhome with 2 kids and a wife, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a little different.
Speaking about Paul's dad, you guys were competitors against each other for a while, and then he became your crew chief. What was the transition like from you trying to beat him, you beating him, or whatever, however it went, to then he's kind of stopped racing and worked to try to move your career forward? And he was probably doing it when he was racing too, but what was that like? Was that a weird transition? You could talk to him because he was a racer, probably, right?
Well, in America, we raced, and it was no big deal if he beat me or I beat him. It wasn't a big deal. We're all trying to make a living. And then when the 700s came out, he decided that bike was not for him, and he was right. It was a different animal than anybody had ever been used to here in the States, and I think that he knew it. His dad's a little smarter than Paul. He actually could figure stuff out. And so he said, that's not for me. And became the manager of the road racing team in America, not only for me, but for the other Yamaha riders.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of dwindled down to one rider and then just me and Kel. So when it was time for me to go to Europe, as much as he didn't want to go to Europe, I twisted his arm and we went to Europe. And it was because that he knew everything about Europe. I mean, my motorhome was not more than a 20 feet off his motorhome the whole way around Europe. That way I didn't have to look at a map. I didn't have GPSs and telephones. So it was a whole lot different era. And he smoothed everything out to where I could just get on the motorcycle and ride it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said I screwed that up most of the time, but we did end up winning the championship the first time out. So that was, I think if we didn't do that, probably wouldn't be here talking to you two guys.
So
even though you don't know nothing.
It's dumb. Well, speaking of which, it's dumb question time for me. So here's one for you. So younger riders, they always tell them, be like a sponge, just absorb everything anybody tells you. You were a younger rider not that long ago. And were you a good student? Could people
Probably
tell you?
not.
Okay.
No, I think he was.
Yeah. I mean, you must have listened to Kel.
Oh yeah. Well, I listened to Kel until he said, when I came in, I'm putting duct tape on my knee. And he goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm hitting my knee on the ground. So I'm going to put this duct tape on so it doesn't rip my foot off the foot peg. And he goes, no, you're not. I go, I am. You see what I'm doing? And he goes, no, you don't drag your knee. Yeah, I do. and we had this argument in the pit for about 3 or 4 minutes. And he finally just gave up and walked away. And so that was the start of the whole thing.
Wow.
It changed from that day, the whole road racing, everything changed in road racing. So
yeah.
I learned to the point of listening to Kel to that point. And then I had to go on my own and try different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he kind of just worked on the bikes and made them better and or tried to, and I rode them.
What do you think of, it's been going on for a few years now, but this dangling out of the leg thing, not really, well, they still drag their knee, but they stick their leg out like an outrigger or put their foot down. Does that seem weird?
Well, I mean, we never had that much grip to play with.
Right.
So the lean angle that they get now is something that we probably never achieved. And if you did, your ass was the next thing to hit the ground.
Right.
So you didn't have to worry about your leg out. So there is a time when that happens, like it used to, especially Daytona and some of the faster things, the wind would actually take your leg off, but you'd still be stopping. So I don't really understand the thing, because concentrating on the brakes and the lift that you're working with and the amount of grip and also you're going to make that apex. I don't understand the thing so much as it, if I put on the brakes and at Daytona, for example, at the 200 marker and didn't have my knees out, I couldn't stop.
Mm.
So the knees out actually was a vent,
It's like a sail.
just like a wind sail. And so there's a little bit of that you might get your whole leg out, but it also might be able to pull you in to the apex a little quicker. That's the only thing I can figure that it does.
Did you ever do it on your
aerodynamics?
Super Tenere?
My ass would be the next thing on the ground if I did.
And he's doing the Wayne Rainey ride tomorrow. You asked him if he rides anymore.
That's true. Yeah, you are doing that.
I just did Colorado 500. Beautiful ride in Colorado. Wally Dallenbach does it every year for charity. So I've done that two or three times.
Yeah.
I don't get out of the parking lot. I just ride circles for people. Do a figure eight.
Now, the bike you're riding, is it the Super Tenere is an ADV bike, upright bike, good seating position. Is it weird for you to ride a cruiser with your feet in front of you?
It's more enjoyable than riding a Grand Prix bike.
It's more comfortable?
And it's a lot better in the dirt than Grand Prix bikes. But it's more comfortable because you're not hunched over the handlebars like on a, super bike.
Right.
So the kind of riding that we do, there's no advantage to riding a super bike.
I just always wondered if it's a control thing with having your feet forward. It doesn't feel comfortable.
But that thing's just the feet are in like a dirt bike
position. But I mean, I'm saying
like
about
he
a
does have
cruiser bike.
Yeah, like a Harley or something.
Yeah.
No, on a road race track, you'd want a road racer or a super bike. But for what we do, riding it, we do some off-road stuff too with it. So.
Right. Well, when you rode that Bolt at the ranch, you were getting pretty sideways on that thing. I remember a few years ago when you had the auction going and everything, you had that bike up there.
I would have been more sideways, but I was wearing my Crocs.
You were wearing your Crocs.
They're not really good for the dirt. They slide off.
No Crocs today.
No. I've got my sandals.
Hey, so I remember seeing photos of you, and sometimes on the YZR 500 and 78 through 80, you would put almost like these little fairings in front of your hands, and I think it was probably maybe rain or something. It was trying to keep the cold air off your. But there had to be some aerodynamics going on.
Well, I had this finger right here would freeze with cold.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's how you had to have them out.
Both of them.
Yeah, it's permanently that way.
So I had to have the rain and the cold. England's always cold. Go around these two fingers.
But what I'm getting at is, so I want to ask you about the aerodynamics that are going on, these wings that they're putting on the MotoGP bikes. What do you think about that?
I think they're just scratching the surface of what the wind does.
Yeah.
I mean, there were Grand Prix bikes that I rode around here, 500s, and I think it was 1 year, Yamaha brought the new bike here, and I was like, man, this thing does not turn well. And into turn one, it's fifth gear, and it just couldn't go from the white line to the apex the way I thought that the last year's bike did. And so we worked on it. Come to find out that it was the fairing that was throwing it off.
The front fairing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Because the other thing I wondered, I
don't know if the front or the back, but the fairing at that time, they split it up. So they had, instead of the air coming through over the front wheel, they had the air coming over through the front wheel, and then they had two side pods on it. And because of that, it wouldn't do what I wanted it to do, what I remembered it should do from the year before. That's before I drank, and I could remember a year and 6 months.
Okay, so that brings up a real specific thing that I'm only personally, I got to ask this for myself, if not for the fans. I don't know if they're going to be entertained. Paul's going to laugh. I'm going to get made fun of by Kenny.
I hope they're watching.
Okay, so the TZ 750, when it first came out, or it might have been the YZR 750, but at any rate, the tail section was like a little wedge type thing, and your bike, you had a big ducktail on the back of it. Is that something you did to change that bike, and did it have to do with aerodynamics?
He doesn't remember.
It would have been his dad.
Okay, so it was something Kel did.
Yeah, it would have been his dad. We had different seats. When they first came out, they were small. Then they got smaller, and then they got bigger. The aerodynamics didn't really come into much then.
Right.
And now they're just kind of figuring out that the aerodynamics makes things work. And like I said, they're just scratching the surface.
Like they never spent any time in a wind tunnel.
Right. Right. They
Yeah.
Kyle Wyman put his road glide in a wind tunnel at Wichita State with bags on the side.
I spent some time in the wind tunnel in my little 3-cylinder, and I tell you,
Did
it's
you?
freezing in
Oh,
England in the wind tunnel in the winter. They had to get a wind tunnel guy because I wasn't going to do it anymore. Yeah, it's cold.
and they run like a smoke through it?
They're only trying to make the thing faster.
Right.
So one of my 3-cylinders, Lotus car company designed it. And at Barcelona, it would go down the straightaway 10 miles an hour quicker. It wouldn't stop. And so my kid was riding it. So I'm going, no, there's something wrong with the shock. No, it just won't stop. And come to find out, we could never get it to work. Of course, we had to go racing, so we didn't have time to figure it out. But the bike was actually much quicker down the straightaway, but it wouldn't stop. And it had a vague feeling turning it in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I knew there was a lot more to the wind than just making it go straight down the straightaway faster. So at that time, we didn't have the budget or the manpower or the thing to figure it out. But they're putting a dent in it now.
Mm-hmm.
Not much because it's just mostly Japanese. But if England or the guys that really know the wind tunnels gets a hold of one, you're going to see a lot of changes.
When you were doing your bike and you were in Banbury. That part of England is really known for a lot of development, and there's a lot of companies there. Is that the reason that you guys were there? I mean, you had industries that you could count on to help you, or
I was a lot smarter than that. I went there because of Formula One technology.
Mm-hmm.
And a week after I got there, I realized that we couldn't afford Formula One technology, and I should have been in Italy. But that's the way it goes.
Mm.
We already moved in, so nothing I could do about that. But England is a cottage industry.
Mm-hmm.
You can get things done literally right down the street. It's nothing like America. And that was America's so big, and so you got to be maybe in Indy. You could probably get some of this stuff done. Maybe where they build Harleys. Where's that? Cheeseheads.
Yeah,
Milwaukee.
Yep.
Maybe. Other than that, I don't know. England's an incredible place to get stuff done that is not quite aerospace, but a heck of a lot better than automotive.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's I don't know. Without Formula One, I don't think England would ever made it because they made shitty bikes for years.
Mm-hmm.
BSA for one of them. Try it. So I don't know that it ever made it out without Formula One.
But heck, Lotus and all those companies. I mean, well, Harris is a good company.
Well, there's a lot of good companies now, but Formula One, I think, pulled them through.
Yeah.
A lot of them, a lot of the bike companies went broke. Now Triumph's they make more models than I ever thought they would. And so it's a big comeback, I think, when you can take a company and make something better, and so everybody just got used to the old BSA. You had to change the ignition, had to do this, do that, and then it was okay. And the Japanese come along and you could just get on it and ride it. So change the whole industry.
A few years ago, I interviewed you, and you hinted something towards the end of the interview that you were working on something. And whenever I see you, it feels like you got something you're working on. You're always working on something. And I always think you're on the verge of, okay, he's got something he's going to have to talk about. And are you working on something?
Sure.
Okay.
I told you I was trying to work on not paying my pants. So,
but I know for a fact you're still doing stuff.
Of course, I'm building a 3-cylinder dirt tracker as we speak, and a 700 dirt tracker that I'm building into a Super T type of bike. But I'm always doing something. I'm going to get into the electric business soon. I've got a guy in Havasu that is building a little electric. I want something I can race in my garage, not worry about the noise and the smoke.
Mm.
So I'm building one of them soon.
What do you think of these electric bikes? Do you think it's
not very much?
Right. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see it down the road.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so it's like 2 strokes, 4 strokes electric bikes.
No, it's coming, and it's not started yet very much, but it will. Yeah, it's going to come.
Have you ridden one, a good one?
I've ridden some that are impressive. It's funny, the little motocross bikes that this guy does in Havasu is really bitching. You just get on it, turn it and go, and it'll run for 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
You're tired anyway.
Yeah, you're tired. 10 minutes, I'm tired. So, it is, and there's no noise. So you can ride it in your backyard. So, yeah, it is I think it's going to help our industry more than hurt it. But I've been involved with some of the bigger stuff. But riding a half an hour and then turning around and having to ride back, I just couldn't see that happening. But the people that rode the Harley and other electric bikes now just say they're awesome. So it's coming. I don't think you're going to stop it by being practical. And what are you going to do with the batteries and all that junk? That's all went over no one's going to stop it now.
Yeah.
What else do you got, Sean?
Oh, I've always got something.
Questions?
Well, yeah, I need to ask you about Lake Havasu. Number one, how do you like living there? How far is Eddie away from you? And do you see Eddie very often? Eddie Lawson, I'm talking about.
Eddie has a shop that I wanted, and I moved in hoping that he would move out so I could buy his shop. And he is stubborn piece of shit, stayed. And now I live about 3 miles from him. We get together quite often. And he's still Eddie Lawson. We still yell and scream at each other. And I needed a place to be warm. And if it's above 80 degrees, you can tell Eddie's in a snowmobile suit. So I figured this is a good place for me to live.
Yeah.
And so we're there, and it's 120 now. So yeah, it's the right place to be if you like it warm.
That doesn't bother you to have temperatures like that?
No, I stay in house. I have one of them cigar things I sit in, and that they pipe air into me.
Damn, that's pretty nice.
That's why I look
it's
so
like
young.
a hyperbaric chamber.
That's why I can put up with you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, so did you get offered a lot of money to ride the Isle of Man?
Yeah.
I thought someone told me that. They also told me they wouldn't let you.
Vernon Cooper was, I hated him. He was the guru of the ACU, which is equivalent to AMA. And he came to Daytona in '84, and because I'd retired from Grand Prix. And someone came into my office type of thing where I get dressed, and Vernon Cooper's here and he wants to talk to you. Yeah, I don't care. And he was just literally shaking because I don't know what he thought I was going to do to him. And he said, I'm here, as you know, for the Isle of Man. I go, yeah, well, you're wasting your time. And he says, well, no, I have a check that you need to look at before you say anything. And he says, just look at the check. And I go, I don't need to look at it. I asked my son. He's only 6. And I asked him. He said, no, don't do it. And he goes, well, would you just look at the check? And at that time, I was getting $30,000-$40,000 to do a race.
Race.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't do many. And so I didn't look at the check. I said, Vernon, your queen doesn't have enough money for me to do that race. And get out of my sight. And the way it went.
But it was $100,000, I heard.
I have no idea what it was. I'm sure it would have had to have been at least.
I heard it was $100,000.
It would have been at least 100. Yeah. I could have been somebody if I'd have done that race.
And I think if you would have gone, you would have gone alone.
Yeah. But I don't think they'd have paid me for doing the 150 kilometers an hour race when they were doing over 100 miles. So
the reason you didn't want to do the Isle of Man is because of the obvious.
Yeah.
The obvious.
No, that's when I learned I could drink. And I don't think I could remember the course. So for me at that time, I had to have my knee on the ground, and I still do. I can't ride my Super T. If my knee doesn't actually on the ground, I'm very uncomfortable riding it.
Wow.
So it's for me to do the Isle of Man and not be able to take the corner the way I thought it should be taken, just wouldn't have worked for me.
in 78, I don't think a lot of people know, but you, like when you did the Nürburgring, it was, what's that, 13 miles around, something like that?
Close, 14.
14. So you had to, we actually went there early and you had a street bike and you rode around, which you could pay and do laps. Anybody can. You could go do it now still, I think.
Yeah, it was $8, I think, at that time.
Yeah. So you pay and you do laps and you rode that track with the purpose of learning it so that you could race in a 500 Grand Prix, which is probably like the week after.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like when you first went out and you started doing that? Were you like, holy crap, I can't do this? Or you're like, no, this is no problem.
No, on a street bike, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a little RD 350 and that was fun. We had a 400 4-stroke and me and Sparky, we just took turns. And it was funny because the closer we got to the week of the race, these guys were showing up with BMWs and super bikes and they would all be lined up and they'd be going like this. And I'd go by and I could watch them in the mirror and they'd be jumping on their bikes trying to follow me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and they would try to follow me for a lap. And then I'd go a lap, go another lap, and then they'd be back again. So there's a club, and they were all...
And they probably knew it better than you.
Yeah, of course they did. And but I learned I didn't ride it 110% every place I went, but there were some places of the racetrack you could actually ride it 100% and be safe. There was some that you didn't want to do that, and we nicknamed them. There was go-kart bin, so it had this one section that looked like a go-kart track, and they had one section that had the big right-hander before the carousel, and that was Shithouse Corner because they had a big porta potty on the
right. So that helped you remember.
Yeah, and that's how I remembered it. And it was just go kart straight, and then you go through the Shithouse Corner, and then that's how I remembered it. And if like meeting Japanese as through my career, if I give them a nickname, I knew right off.
Right.
But if I had to remember their name, no way.
Right.
Still,
you can always remember shithead.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I'm dumbass. So you
dumbass.
You're a dumb question guy.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back for a minute to. I've asked you this before, but for the viewers, who's the best rider you ever worked with?
Wayne.
Right. What is he to you? Is he your
pain in the ass?
Right. And does he feel like a brother, a son, a friend? All of those?
We were very good together, even though we had upsets, but we enjoyed each other's company.
Right.
And
still do.
We enjoyed, sure. And we enjoyed spending so much time because at every Grand Prix, they would bring us the videotapes of practice, and I had a video editing machine, and so we would just fast forward, slow it down. What's that? Actually, and so I spent personally probably 3 hours a day in the video room, critiquing away because he wasn't winning at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was just people said I was the dumbest racing manager in the world to hire him, and so. I figured, I got my spot down pretty well. So we kind of proved him wrong a little bit. Matter of fact, Honda racing people said to his manager, if we don't think Wayne's good enough to go to Europe, so if he wants to go to Europe, he can go. We'll let him out of the contract. So that's why he went.
So 84.
Honda's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Fall in your category.
Yeah, fall in my category. 84 with you had Alan Carter and Wayne Rainey. And it was a tough time. We were on 250s, and then he came back over here and he raced with Bob McLean for a little bit. But then he went back over with you again. So what did you feel like at the end of that time period of that 250? Did you feel like, we didn't do what we were supposed to do, or he's not ready yet?
No.
Okay.
It's simply a matter of money.
Okay.
Marlboro pulled we didn't set the world on fire with 250s. As a matter of fact, I think the only record we set was Wayne passed the pace car more than anybody else that year because he couldn't start it. And I don't know why. Nobody knew, but I knew that he didn't lose his talent to ride a motorcycle.
Right.
You know, we trained every winter. I saw him race America here actually too. So it was, I wanted Wayne back on the motorcycle. And it came to a point where I wanted to get younger. And we had Randy Mamola, great racer. But I wanted to go younger. And so the spot came up and Wayne, that's when everybody said I was such an idiot. But I knew what I wanted to do. And I knew Wayne was capable of doing what I thought he could do. And so we worked, you know, really hard on that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think Wayne, you know, Eddie was a great racer. That's why, you know, Yamaha hired him and won a lot of championships.
Mm-hmm.
We needed just a little bit. I wanted to be a little younger, and that's how it all worked out. It was a lot of work, behind the scenes to get Wayne winning Grand Prix. But once he started winning, it was all over.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very
Nobody
meticulous.
else.
Right.
I mean, I know that working with him.
Yeah,
so
for
do
sure.
you.
We
I
do.
mean, you know, he goes through things like, you're like,
oh.
can we be done? Oh, no, let's look at.
No,
So that had
let's
to
look
made
at
him.
that again.
Right.
Yeah, let's look at that again. He's like that now.
Right.
And I told Lord Marsh, I said, man, I just hope he doesn't want to come for the race around the racetrack now, you know.
Right.
And that's the way he goes. You know, he just goes from one, he sucks all that in and then he goes again. And not one time I ever said to Wayne, you want to look at the videos? And he went, nah, I don't have time for that crap right now. No, that just never happened.
Looking every time.
It never happened. And it was always the first one there, last one to leave. So it was hard on me to go through all that stuff because I'd rather been, you know, I had girls waiting outside and,
Of course.
and champagne and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, I was stuck in there with a, you know, glass of water running through videotape.
What was it feeling like at Goodwood with you and also with Wayne? Were you nervous? Were you nervous?
At first, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Were you nervous for yourself or nervous for Wayne?
Oh, what could happen to me?
Okay, so you were nervous. You just wanted it to go well, and when it did you?
I didn't want a good thing, a great thing that that Goodwood did, which is makes all of American people that do these things not even in existence. But Goodwood is special, as I said, and I didn't want to see something that special the first time out turn into a disaster. That's all I was interested in, is where he stopped, where he took off, and who was going to catch him, and who get him off the bike, when, and all that stuff. Once that was all done, then it was I was fine.
Right.
But did you feel the sense of pride at this event with Wayne that you used to when he would race for you?
Yes, of course. 30 years just disappeared. All of a sudden, I'm riding up the hill with Wayne.
Right.
What isn't the first time I raced up the hill with him.
Right.
As a matter of fact, he ran into me here in a superbike race, and I was winning the race. And I told him he crashed. Aldana took him out, and he was on a superbike. We called them stupid bikes at that time. And I said, I went up the corkscrew and follow me. And I got to the last corner. It was like 2 laps to go. And bam, I felt this thing run into me. And I just straightened up because I knew somebody had hit me. And I looked back and his eyes were about that big. And he was pedaling, trying to keep from falling over. And that was the first time I let him follow me. And he said, why'd you stop? I go, corner. And so that was the first time. So yeah, we go, of course you're nervous and you feel of all them things that keeps running back through your brain. And it's like 30 years just went away, and I'm doing it again, I did before.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, Wayne, the bike's really fat. They should lean it down. Everybody's going, no, you leaning it down.
Right.
It was smoking pretty good.
Yeah, that was on the safe side.
Yeah.
My face shield, I went, man, what happened to my face shield? The guy goes, oh, that's oil from Wayne's bike. It's like, God. And they wouldn't lean it down.
How was the jetting on the Proton? Was it crisper?
Well, it was actually following Wayne. We were going a little bit too slow for it. But me and Swans went up the hill the last run, and I finally cleaned it out and did a wheelie across the finish line. So it finally cleaned out. It took that long, but it is a really fantastic bike to ride.
So I got to ask you about, of course, Kevin was there and Michael Doohan and Danny Pedrosa was there as well. Who else was out on the track with you guys? Was that?
There was an old guy named Agostini.
Did he go out?
Yeah.
80, turned 80.
Yeah,
Did you
with MV.
Yeah.
For the fourth time.
For the fourth. What was it like to be among all those guys again? I mean, were you guys bench racing a little bit and talking about things, or?
Well, me, Doohan, and Swans had some time together up on the hill, bullshitting about old times.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time we went up the mountain, we got bullshitting faster.
Right.
So it was like getting right down to the bullshit. Not, hey, what's going on? It was right down to the bullshit. No, we had a great time. They all rose to the moment. And that's, I don't know. I don't do any other sports.
Right.
They wanted me to do basketball, but
Too short.
Yeah. And so I don't know, but it just seemed like we all were there for the same reason, to watch Wayne go up the hill.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't want to turn into something bad happening. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen bad about riding one of them things, especially in a confine like that. And the tires are I almost crashed twice leaving the pit because the tires are cold and who knows how old they are. So the thing went sideways on me.
I saw it one time. It went right around.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see good.
Yeah, I saw it. I was like, damn, he got out of right there.
And that's the problem with the things is they do not turn. No radius to turn. They want you to, go over there. It's like, it doesn't turn over there, but that's the kind of things you got to put up with. That's what I didn't want, Wayne, because if you turn the Grand Prix bike, they only turn about that far and then they tip over. So unless you're on a racetrack where you lean them, you can't really ride them. So
yeah, like speed is your friend on those.
Yeah. And, low gear is 60, 70 mile an hour. So when you're trying to ride it at 2, they just really don't like it.
Well, so with the Proton, did you shift it at all going up the hill? Where'd you get third
gear, third gear, fourth and fifth?
You did
after the start finish line.
Wow. Okay. That's cool.
Okay. We're calling this a day.
I know. Well, listen, we talked about the pride you felt. I mean, I feel proud that
5
we got
o'clock
a chance to do.
I need a drink.
We'll get you one.
I'm just proud that we had a chance to talk to Kenny Roberts, 3-time world champion, 500cc era, and obviously a man ahead of his time with developing motorcycles and developing riders and everything else this man has done. So he's a national treasure. And Kenny, thank you for being on with us. I know it's a different world with you and Paul, but for me, it's all about the admiration. So
that's a big word.
It's 4 syllables.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.